Hello and welcome to the November edition of Our Faith, Our Diocese. I'm Dan Gallagher. Next month, the Diocese will begin a year-long celebration commemorating the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Diocese of Scranton. With a theme of The Journey Makes Us One, the Church of Scranton will kick off this year with a special pontifical Mass at the Cathedral of St. Peter on the first Sunday of Advent, December 3rd. In our opening segment, we'll talk with the chairman of the planning committee for this anniversary celebration, Monsignor Joseph Quinn, who serves as pastor of Our Lady of the Snows and St. Benedict's here in Clarks Summit, about some of the significant events that will be taking place in the months ahead. Monsignor, in recognition of this very special year, what does the Church of Scranton have in store for the next few months?
Dan, I'd say that everything we've planned is to help us remember, to look back to the starting point of the life of the Diocese of Scranton, March 3rd, 1868. 150 years ago, when this diocese was carved out of the then Diocese of Philadelphia, when the Diocese of Harrisburg the same day was carved out, when the Diocese of Wilmington, Delaware was carved out the same day. An indication of just the growth that was taking place at that time. And I hope that our journey will be one of not just looking back with nostalgia, but figuring out how those ahead of us face the challenges of their days and learning from their inspiration as we face our own challenges now in the 21st century.
Speaking of that, as we look at where we are today as a church, why is it so important to look back to our past?
Because I think it's always important that we remember. In this month of November, what do? We remember so that we might never forget. We remember our past so we might live our present and approach the future with confidence.
Monsignor, in the weeks ahead, faithful throughout the diocese will be seeing the theme for this year's celebration, The Journey Makes Us One. Why did the committee decide to take that particular theme?
I think the reason we are embracing that line is it really does tell our story. I think when you look back at all of the various groups that arrived in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it was phenomenal when you look back at the numbers, in what would ultimately be an 11-county area, the northeast corner and north central portion of Pennsylvania, you realize that it was journeying together, sometimes comfortably and sometimes not, that ultimately brought about people of community, people who lived with a sense of oneness.
Over the course of the next 12 months, we'll be looking at different elements of our diocesan history. What will be some of the areas that will be showcased?
I guess we look back and we look at our history as it was told at the 50-year mark in 1918. When we reach the 100-year mark in 1968. When we find ourselves at the 150th year in the year 2018, and we watch how the story was told. In the earliest days, it was told about the religious communities that came here and what they did, how they laid the foundation for education as we know it in our whole state, how they laid the foundation for health care as we know it today, how they laid the foundation for neighborhoods and families, and how what they did gave rise to society. So we'll be looking back at a whole spectrum of different dimensions, from leadership of our bishops to some of the lay pioneers like John Mitchell and how they impacted our lives in labor movements. We'll be looking at things like healthcare and education. We'll be looking at the involvement of the priesthood and diaconate. We'll be looking at all of our parishes, how at one time we had 240 parishes. Why so many? Because half of them were based upon language. But in the course of those 150 years, we saw how ultimately the journey did in fact make us one. And how even more so today, we need to remember that and understand that in our oneness is found our strength, our hope, and our future.
As we prepare to celebrate the 150th anniversary, we will be getting ready for 3 liturgies, all being held at the Cathedral of St. Peter, starting off on the first Sunday of Advent and ending on the Feast of Christ the King. Why are those particular dates so significant?
Well, I think the significance of the timeline is really the Church celebrates its year from the first Sunday of Advent to the Feast of Christ the King. That's how we look at the liturgical year. And so the bishop has opted to use that calendar to help us to look back, to reflect, to remember, to learn anew the lessons of the past, and to be strengthened again in our spirit of faith and hope and love. So the first Mass, which will be celebrated at the cathedral, but also at all 120 parishes on that Sunday, we will all be joining together in all 11 counties to celebrate the opening of the sesquicentennial year. We will be celebrating this on March the 4th because that's the weekend when we actually look back to the actual start date of the beginning of the Diocese of Scranton. And then we close in November of next year with the Feast of Christ the King. Now we have 3 distinguished visitors, truly national and international leaders of the church coming. Cardinal Rogali, the former Archbishop of Philadelphia, and for a period of time, before Bishop Bambera became the 10th bishop of the diocese, Cardinal Rogali was here as the administrator of the diocese. They will open the year. In March, we have the Archbishop of Philadelphia, Archbishop Chaput, coming for his first visit as the Metropolitan for our entire metropolitan community. And then next November, to our delight and surprise, the Apostolic Nuncio, the representation of the Holy Father himself, Archbishop Pierre, will be here to help us close the year.
Monsignor, you were mentioning the fact that you're asking parishes also to take part in that celebration on the first Sunday of Advent as we kick off the year of our anniversary celebration. Is that something we're hoping for, to see our parishes get more involved in this celebration?
A good question, because our hope is that this is not an event just somehow confined to the central site of the diocese in Scranton at the cathedral. Our hope is that all 120 parishes will use it as an occasion for them to look back at their stories, and each one is an extraordinary story. But more than these just 3 major liturgies, there are 45 different events scheduled during the course of the year throughout the diocese. There's a creative documentary that's underway that will air right before the major dedication date anniversary in March. It's going to air on WVIA on March 1st. It will tell our story in a different fashion. That video will be divided up in many ways, used in many ways throughout the course of the whole year that I think help us to tell our story. We have a mobile app that will bring to mind Pokemon Go from 2 summers ago when everybody was all over the place. And on that will be 12 different sites, at least, a good apostolic number, of different places throughout the diocese where we can go and look at the story, all the way back to 1828, long before the diocese was formally established. So a fun year is ahead. I hope a year that gives life and energy to faith and reminds us to never forget.
As part of our year-long celebration, we'll soon be unveiling a new clergy directory showcasing the active clergy in our diocese, both priests and deacons. That's another element of our history, the bishops, the clergy, the deacons who have so faithfully served the Church of Scranton. Why is that such an important part of this celebration?
Well, I would hope we're looking back at more than just the clergy. In fact, the bishop has emphatically said, tell the full story. That the formation and the evolution of our diocese is more than the story of clergy, more than the story of religious communities. It involved lay leadership along the way and families who gave of themselves time and time again to form smaller communities that ultimately would become those united larger communities. But why do we tell the stories? Because they were servant leaders who helped point the way. People God used to nudge us forward. A story like Father Patrick Peyton, reminding us always that the family that prays together stays together. His story in the United States started in the Cathedral of Scranton, where he served as a sacristan. Stories like that are good to remember, good to reflect upon, and they offer us encouragement, oxygen for the soul that we need in today's times.
Monsignor, one last question. As we look back on the rich traditions of this diocese and how our predecessors had such an impact on our journey of faith, can we look forward to the next 150 years with a sense of hope and optimism?
I hope we will. We live in challenging times, but they say to live is to change. But to change, we need to remember the changes of the past and the why of those changes. And I hope that's part of what we'll do as we go forward with the good work of CTV and the Catholic Light, with other media along the way helping us to tell the story and to find in our past reasons to be confident about the future.
A new agency here in Scranton is looking for volunteers to help others in need. Launched last April, the Ignatian Volunteer Corps provides meaningful opportunities for men and women ages 50 and older to help others. And as we'll see in our next segment, the agency also helps volunteers grow in their faith and their relationship with Christ. Joining me now, it's a pleasure to welcome Teddy Michael, who is the Regional Director for Ignatian Volunteer Corps of Northeastern Pennsylvania, Next, I'd like to welcome Deborah Pellegrino, Dean of the University of Scranton's Panuska College of Professional Studies, and part and parcel of that college is the university's Leahy Community Health and Family Center. Deborah, welcome. Teddy, welcome. Teddy, for the benefit of people who may not be all that familiar with Ignatian Volunteer Corps, tell me a little bit about this volunteer effort and its primary mission.
Yeah, Dan, thanks. You know, I would describe it as a volunteer program for individuals 50 and older who are retired, semi-retired. And it's an opportunity for meaningful volunteer experiences in really two ways. The program itself has two main branches. There is the time commitment branch where a volunteer will serve at a partner agency like St. Francis, the Leahy Family Health and Community Center, St. Joe's, Friends of the Poor, for 8 or 16 hours a week. It's a pretty intensive time commitment, 1 to 2 days a week for 10 months. We generally start in the school year and finish, we start in September and then finish the following June. The second main branch of the program, really what the special sauce is there is a spirituality support program woven into the volunteers' experience. So we have individuals who are retired looking to be of service to their community, but at the exact same time, they're looking to grow themselves. And that's where the Ignatian Volunteer Corps' special sauce really comes into play. And the spirituality support program has 3 parts. We have retreats in the fall, another retreat in the spring. Our volunteers gather once a month to share regarding their volunteer experiences. And the third way is the volunteers have the opportunity of being paired with a spiritual reflector or a spiritual accompaniment person, which is an individual the volunteer would meet with once a month to dig a little deeper. What are you seeing at your site? How do you feel your heart being tugged or your heart being pulled? And that all is wrapped in this model of service. So our volunteers, by doing service and helping others, really come to understand and grow a little bit more about who they are.
Deborah, you come here today representing one of the partner agencies that Teddy will be working with, the Leahy Community Health and Family Center. Tell me a little bit about the center and its work and why Ignatian Volunteer Corps is such a perfect match with this agency.
Oh, Dan, it really is. So the Leahy Community Health and Family Center is housed in the Panuska College of Professional Studies, which is undergraduate and graduate students in the helping professions. So occupational therapy, physical therapy, nursing, counseling, education, a whole slew of other majors. So 15 years ago, the faculty and the staff and the students decided that we should start interprofessional, almost learning laboratory so that we could practice what we believe in. And our belief is being men and women for and with others in our rich Jesuit heritage. So it was a slow start, and then 10 years ago, we started what we call part of the Community Health and Family Center is the Leahy Clinic. Well, let me tell you something. That's God in action, because it has blossomed. So we started with a subacute medical clinic in 2007. From there, we have our graduate counseling clinic, we have a food pantry, we now have a physical therapy clinic, and we have a low vision clinic, all at no cost to the marginalized population of Lackawanna County. But we need our help. The IVC is the perfect match to work with graduate and undergraduate students who believe in the Jesuit mission, who practice, who realize that call to care. So we're looking for retired doctors, nurses, secretaries, translators, anyone that wants to work in a busy atmosphere where I'm telling you it's busy, where students are coming and going. We have pre-med students, exercise science students who want to learn. So not only are they helping the community, but they're helping students that also are new to Lackawanna County and is like a mini United Nations. And it's a true gift that God has graced us with, but we need the help of IVC volunteers.
Teddy, speaking of that, for someone that's watching this interview today and is at a point where they're saying, yes, maybe I would like to get involved in this ministry, What is expected of them in terms of time and the work they'll be involved in?
Great question, Dan. The discernment process, and that's really what it is. The Ignatian Volunteer Corps is Jesuit-based, so there's a lot of intentional time built into this discernment process. What it is not is a conversation with Teddy, and 7 to 10 days later you are volunteering. This is a 4 to 8 week process where the volunteer will find information on our website or our Facebook page, and then we'll start to have a couple of conversations together. We'll meet in person, we'll meet after Mass, we'll head out for coffee, and then really trying to discern, what is this call? We're a program of attraction, not promotion. There's not an overt media campaign to get our name out there. Our 9 current volunteers are attracted to this idea that they can be of service and then grow. So when I meet with that individual the first time, I do a lot of listening. I will answer every question that there is, but listen to hear that call, hear that energy. And then we'll take a break for a week. Let's reconvene in another week or two. And what happened? Were there confirmations you saw, you heard a story, or you ran into an old friend that talked about something? And then incorporate those confirmations to further that discernment. Once we reach a point where a volunteer says, man, I am attracted to it, this is something that I feel called to do, then the next step is to have the volunteer meet with a potential partner agency director. Because we understand the matches, that is the pairing of the volunteers' skills, abilities, and their own inherent gifts with the needs of the partner agency. There's magic there. And the magic needs some time. It's like making a loaf of bread. You just can't put flour, water, yeast, and 2 minutes later it's all there. You need to leaven that dough. You need to allow it to rise. And then when you're getting ready to shape that loaf, you need to work it. So there's the relationship between the dough, the hands, everything has to come together to work this match together. And again, that Ignatian discernment really can yield great matches. And after the volunteer has met with a partner agency, they understand the time commitment, they understand the spiritual support program, let's go.
Some people would call that grace. It's definitely, the magic is the grace, and it's grace from God. And everything that happens is truly a gift. And that's how you have to look at it.
Right.
You're right.
Deborah, when you think about the years of experience and all the wisdom that these volunteers are bringing to the forefront, what is it about older volunteers? What gifts and talents do they truly bring to the table?
Well, they bring their background, their expertise, and also what I call lived experiences to make meaning. So retirement is just another stage. It's the beauty of looking for the greater glory of God. And so God has been so good to you, and now you're giving back. But you're going to be surprised because you realize your life is just starting. It's a new journey. And the journey is being part of the Ignatian Volunteer Corps to understand your spirituality about what does God really expect of us. And He expects all of us to be there for each other. And that is the beauty. To me, it's a birth. It's a new beginning.
Ostensibly, these volunteers are stepping forward because they want to be of service to others. But Teddy, do you think it's truly a two-way street? Do you think these volunteers are getting as much out of the program as the people they're trying to help?
Yeah, that really is the transformative magic of this process. Based on Ignatian spirituality and our own Catholic social teaching, the best thing we can do is to serve one another. And when you connect with your inner energy, when you are retired and the world around you may now be saying you're invisible, you matter less because you are no longer working or you're no longer doing this. Phooey to that. Phooey to that, because just like Deborah had said, your lived experiences, I know and believe and understand and hope can inspire others. because the one-on-one relational experiences with the poor and marginalized, that's the gospel. That is the magic of our faith, that you need to do nothing other than be present with these individuals and then be open to how that grace will come into your life. And that's what excites me the best. As for me, a member of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps out of college, our motto is Ruined for Life, which means through your lived experiences as a Jesuit volunteer, something will happen, something will change. And for me, what it was is your past is the exact same. Your past is your past. But your direct relational experiences, recognizing the inherent human dignity of the human person, the fact that you can accompany the poor and marginalized through challenging times, allows you to put on glasses and you see your past through a different lens. And things just kind of start to make sense. And those ruined for life moments are really what I'm hoping the grace moments to encapsulate into the Ignatian Volunteer Corps. And that's the duality of this. And what's really exciting, Dan, is our volunteers, by doing of service, come to understand themselves. They come to be more who they are. Well, guess what happens once you understand who you are better? You can do more. Your capacity to do, after connecting with who you are, allows you to do more. It allows you to love more because you are more focused and centered on with that core of who you are. And you can do more. And then by your doing, again, in this reflection program, it's just back and forth. And it's almost a spiral up, but it's not. What it is the program is a spiral within. It is digging deeper and deeper to get into that central spot and let it come out.
That's it. It's love. You totally articulated what the IVC is perfectly. So the Ignatian, if you've never experienced the Ignatian spiritual exercises, part of the discernment after you volunteer is that reflection. You have to have reflection to go along with your service. I have been at a Jesuit university both in Kansas City and in Scranton. I did my doctoral work at St. Louis University, 3 of the 28 Jesuit universities. And I can tell you it was only a few years ago when I was part of the Ignatian Scholars Collegiate Program that I really started to understand what is the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola. And look how many years it brought me to that path. I can tell you, you become an IVC volunteer and you go through the spiritual exercises, your life will never be the same again.
Once again, as we approach Thanksgiving, hundreds of people will be gathering here at the Scranton Cultural Center the week of Thanksgiving to take part in the annual Thanksgiving dinner sponsored by Friends of the Poor, followed by the Family to Family Food Basket program. In our next segment, we'll see how these two programs are doing all they can to ensure that families and individuals in need have the opportunity to enjoy a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. Megan, here we are celebrating our 41st year with this dinner. Why do you think there is still such a great need for this Thanksgiving celebration?
You know, I mean, ideally, we would love to eradicate poverty and have no need for this dinner anymore, but that's just not realistic. There's always the working poor. There's always somebody who one more bill is going to put them over the edge because they're living paycheck to paycheck. So what this dinner really means to 1,500 people is that they have somewhere to go, not only to get a hot meal, but to have that community spirit that's just togetherness and being grateful for everything that we have and not having to be alone for one more holiday or one more dinner if they maybe don't have any other family or anywhere to go.
And if we didn't have this dinner, do you think there would be a huge void in this community at Thanksgiving?
I think there would be. I think there are a lot of Thanksgiving programs or food giveaways, but the important part that we really try to provide is the dignity of sitting down, having a meal with another person, and having that conversation and the companionship.
Linda, here we are celebrating the 31st anniversary of Family to Family. Do you think the need for this program is as great today as it's ever been?
I do, because again, we talk about the working poor, and it struck home last year because a woman called me like 2 days before Thanksgiving thinking that she had missed the whole Thanksgiving program and worried because she didn't want her children to know that she couldn't afford to get a Thanksgiving meal. And she was so worried because she wouldn't meet the criteria or she couldn't have a dinner, and we were like, please just come on down. There is no criteria. We want everybody to have a Thanksgiving dinner. And she was so relieved and just so grateful, because she said, we work so hard, but we just can't afford to feed the family for the holiday.
Megan, obviously you couldn't take this dinner on if you didn't have the support of the community. With that in mind, what do you need in terms of financial support and also people who are willing to volunteer their time to prepare for this dinner?
Well, we do cook 210 pounds of turkey, which is quite a lot of turkey, and we have to purchase those. So that's one of our main needs, is just raising the funds to buy those turkeys. But the day of, we start at early in the morning with our potato peeling party, where everyone brings their own peeler, and then we move throughout the day with just the logistics. There's no kitchen here at the Cultural Center, so we're cooking off-site and bringing the food here, and then our volunteers are grabbing it and bringing it to the kitchen and getting it ready to be served. And then even the volunteers who are serving the plates and then just sit down at the table to have conversations and walk people out to their cars or back to their buses and help them get on. There's a need everywhere you look, and our community is really great at filling that role, and it's just a really happy, the community-filled day. I mean, it's really shows you the highlight of how well our community comes together when there's people who need it.
Linda, same question. How dependent are you on the generosity of this community, people who are willing to put in the time and also make donations?
Oh, we couldn't do it without anybody. We had a group of volunteers that came to us earlier this year who asked how they could help us financially. So we kind of have a little bit of a head start this year with people who saw a need and just decided that they wanted to help us. The day of, we have kids who show up from the football team at prep at 6 o'clock in the morning to help us start bagging the turkeys. And from that time on, all the schools start showing up, and we just couldn't do anything without them. We're so grateful. And for them, it is a spirit of helping, and kids have done this year after year and come back even after they've graduated and stuff to help us out. So it's an amazing day. Really great to be a part of it.
Megan, for someone who's watching this interview today and is saying to themselves, yes, I'd like to make a donation to the Thanksgiving dinner, or better yet, they're saying, I'd like to come down, volunteer, and be part of the dinner, how can they get in touch with your office to get more information?
Well, they can definitely visit our website or our Facebook page to just see what's going on with us, what our latest activities are, and all of our contact information is there. But if you want to help with the dinner, just show up. Just come on the day. Doors open at 5 o'clock, so we have people there a couple hours ahead of time setting everything up, and we also need help with cleanup at the end of the night. So even if you're working till 5, 6 o'clock, you can still come on down after and help.
And Linda, for people who want to make a donation to the Family to Family Food Basket program, tell me a little bit about how the program works and how much we're actually asking of people to prepare a basket.
Well, you know, our tagline has always been $25 or whatever you can afford, but unfortunately prices have gone up a little bit. So to feed a small family is actually about $35, and a larger family is almost $50. So we've kind of increased our ask a little bit, but we are certainly so grateful for the $5 and the $10 donations we get as well. But those donations can also be made on our website. We have links to all of our donation pages, and Facebook, Instagram, more of those things Ryan and Mary Christine will talk about.
Ryan, one of the things that strikes me year after year is when I come here on the day of Family to Family and I see the people lining up the street all the way down the block around the Cultural Center. Do you think most people would be amazed at how much of a need there really is in our family program?
Oh, absolutely. I think every year we're amazed by how many people show up. You know, you think the economy is recovering and that people are getting on their feet. At least you think that because you're kind of blinded to it, but it's always amazing every year the number of people that show up and are needing a basket.
Mary Christine, as a new member of the Robeson family, this is going to be your first experience with Family to Family. Why are you so excited? Why are you looking forward to being part of this program?
It's a great organization, and just to see everyone come together and work so hard to make such a difference in the community, it's something that you just want to be part of.
Ryan, over the last couple of years, I know you have been using the power of the internet to get the word out there. If people want to get more information about Family to Family, how can they go about it?
They can visit our website, familytofamilypa.org. or check out our Facebook or Instagram. We're trying to update that a little bit more.
Ryan, as your mom mentioned, you couldn't do this program if you didn't have the support of the community. Are you amazed by the generosity of the people who come here year after year to support Family to Family?
I think every year, especially the last 3 years, we've been extremely humbled by just the outreach that our community has given us, whether it's financially or donating their time. Every year we might have as many volunteers show up as there are people in need, which is absolutely incredible. And you think about all the people working behind the scenes to make the day a reality is really incredible, especially considering all the donations that we receive from people we've never even met before.
Mary Christine, when people are looking for information on programs such as Family to Family, they often turn to a website, but we're also using social media. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we're trying to make our Instagram page just a little bit more updated. I mean, everything, even our Facebook page, we're trying to update it a little bit more and get people a little bit more interactive on it. You know, posting events, posting people at events, so people can see their own faces on the pages, and just make it a lot more social, get people communicating back and forth, maybe about their experience.
Mary Christine, when we get to that point where you and Ryan and the rest of the family are sitting down for your own Thanksgiving dinner, do you think it'll be a little bit more special knowing that in your small part you actually help people in need enjoy a brighter Thanksgiving?
Oh, for sure. You don't realize what you take for granted, and you know, having a nice big family dinner, especially on a holiday, is something that I've always looked forward to. It's such a important part of the year, and to think about others not having that opportunity, it's heartbreaking. So to be able to be part of a group of people that put that dinner on someone else's table and give their family that opportunity, it's a blessing. It feels great.
On Sunday, November 5th, hundreds of young Catholics from around the diocese gathered at the Cathedral of St. Peter to take part in a liturgy that kicked off National Vocation Awareness Week. In our closing segment, we'd like to share with you highlights from that service and the reception that followed here at the Diocesan Pastoral Center. We'll also look back on some services that recently took place at the Cathedral, including the Mass consecrating the Diocese of Scranton to the care of the Blessed Virgin Mary, World Mission Sunday Mass, and the rite of admission to candidacy for the permanent diaconate.
On behalf of His Excellency, the Most Reverend Bishop Bambera, the Diocesan Vocation Office, the hashtag Leave a Mark Committee, all priests and religious sisters and brothers of the diocese, I welcome you to this special liturgy for the National Vocation Awareness Week, hashtag Leave a Mark 17.
My brothers and sisters, welcome to our cathedral this Sunday evening. Welcome to all who normally join together to worship and praise God at this hour and in this place. And a very special welcome to the young church of the Diocese of Scranton, to the young church that is our hope today and for the days and years ahead, as we welcome young men and women from schools around our diocese, from colleges throughout here in the Northeast, and from all sorts of different walks of life and experience to come together to give thanks to God, to pray that the Spirit of the Lord will pour upon you so that you can continue to leave a mark for good in the world in Jesus' name. What a great gathering this is. Sometimes people will say, "Where is the young church?" All I'd have to say to them is, right here. And we are so pleased to have you present to worship and to pray with us this day.
In you, O Lord, I found my peace, my peace, my peace. In you, Lord, I have found my peace, my peace, my peace.
Sister Mindy said I had to turn my phone off, but she didn't say that I couldn't use it. So this is, I have the absolute best seat in the house here. And this is a gathering that really is worth Now you can sit down. Check out that hashtag Leave a Mark later on my Twitter account. I take care of it myself, so if you don't like it, don't tell me. This is really an outstanding gathering tonight. It's just amazing to see so many of you here to celebrate and to worship and to just simply acknowledge who you are and who we all are as we journey together in Jesus Christ. For it is in service that our beliefs are given life, and the mark that we leave in this world finds its light. I want to share with you a story about an individual, I think, who really stands out in a stellar way, a unique way when all is said and done, to the challenge that's presented to every one of us this evening. Earlier this fall, an event took place here in the Church of the United States. For the first time in our history as a nation, an American-born priest was recognized as a martyr for the faith, and he was beatified on September 23rd in a ceremony that took place in, of all areas, not Rome, but in Oklahoma City. And that beatification was the final stage as he's prepared to be canonized a saint. The priest's name is Stanley Rother. Now, blessed Stanley Rother. I don't know if you know his story, but do me a favor. I'd encourage you to become familiar with it. Stanley Rother was born in 1935 in Oklahoma. If he were alive today, he wouldn't be hundreds of years old by any stretch. He'd be about 81 or 82. In fact, he studied for the priesthood at Mount St. Mary's Seminary with one of our own priests, Monsignor Joseph Rauscher. Some of you might know him. He served for years as pastor of St. Nicholas Parish in Wilkes-Barre. Shortly after Stanley was ordained a priest in 1963, he sought the permission of his bishop to join the diocese's mission church in Guatemala. Father Stanley connected well with the native tribes who were descendants of the Mayans. He learned their language. He embraced the poverty that they sadly lived. He grew up on a farm, and because of that, he was able to put his skills to good use by helping in the fields and building irrigation systems. He ministered in their homes, eating with the natives, visiting the sick, and helping them with their medical problems. Unfortunately, while Father Stanley served in Guatemala, there was a civil war raging. The church was caught in the middle due to its insistence on caring for and educating the people, amazingly. And during that conflict, thousands of Catholics were killed. Eventually, Father Stanley's name surfaced on a death list. For his safety, his bishop ordered him to return to Oklahoma. But he didn't stay very long. He said it wasn't enough for him to merely talk about the atrocities that were now being inflicted upon the people that he had come to love and to know so well. He said he needed to be with them, stating that the shepherd cannot run from his sheep. And so eventually he returned to Guatemala, and within a few months of his return, early on the morning of July 28th, 1981, not a long time ago, 3 men entered his rectory at about 1 a.m. and executed him. People of the village where he served mourned his loss. Because of their affection and their veneration, his people requested that his heart be kept in Guatemala, where it remains enshrined today. Blessed Stanley Rother from Oklahoma will one day be a saint, a martyr, a martyr. He died for his faith, but far more significantly, he would tell you that he lived for Jesus, and he left an indelible mark for good in the world. In a place where a lot of people said it's not worth giving your life for these individuals, but they were worth it to him, and that made all the difference. Suffice it to say, to one and all who have helped to make this evening such a meaningful time, such a challenge for us, such an affirmation of all the good that so many do, and such a reminder to all of us of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, to all of you, and in a special way to our music ministry that really helped to pull this evening together. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Why are you so excited about being part of this event?
I think it's just a wonderful event for the young church to come together. I think it's just a natural reaction for people to get excited when they come together. And, the whole purpose of the event is to leave a mark. So we're just taking that excitement from the church and bringing it to the world where it's supposed to be shared.
I try to leave my mark wherever I can. I like to do a lot of community service, and I like to help out people that are in need. Over the summer, I went on a service trip to New Jersey where I helped people recover from Hurricane Sandy. They're still recovering out there. I went with a group from my school. I felt like I left a mark there. I felt like I really made a difference, and every time I get the opportunity, I like to feel like that.
As Bishop Bambera said when he started our celebration today, people always ask, where are the young people? And they were here tonight. So sometimes I think when you're going to different parishes throughout the course of the weekend, you might not get to see the whole overall picture. How many young high school students, college students, young adults really care about their faith and are taking their faith seriously. So when you come to an event like this, and even for me personally, 25 years old, to coordinate a committee of 20, 25 individuals and to sit in the cathedral tonight and see it filled with members of the young church and those who work with them from throughout our diocese, it just brings a smile to your face because God is good, and hopefully he will keep blessing all of our work here in the diocese. And I really hope that everyone takes Bishop Bambera's message seriously, that when we leave here today, we continue to leave a mark, make a difference for good in our world, and really live as intentional and missionary disciples of Jesus.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to St. Peter's Cathedral for this Mass on the 29th Sunday of the church year, and this day in which we join with Christians around the world to celebrate World Mission Sunday. Welcome to so many of you from our schools, from our parishes, and from our cathedral community to reflect upon God's invitation to each one of us, as Pope Francis so often reminds us, to be missionary disciples, to take the great gift of faith that we have been given through baptism and to give it away, to spread it to the world that God places in our care.
Worship the Lord in holy attire, tremble before him all the earth, say among the nations, the Lord is King, he governs the peoples with equity.
young people, I say to you, it is through your eyes that Christ's love is brought into this world. It is through your voice that Christ is brought into this world. Through your hands and feet that the world changes, even perhaps when you think you are much too young to make a difference. The church as a whole, all of us, we repay and render unto God what belongs to him by evangelizing our culture and seeing in the migrant, the refugee, and our displaced brothers and sisters to be on par with us to the life of God. Men and women and children who need us. This is the time, to quote Bishop Bambera, to be a part of the irresistible force of the resurrection in a broken world that brings the hopeful promise of salvation to those who are in need and for those who so desperately search for safety, for comfort, and for joy.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Peace be with you. My brothers and sisters, welcome to St. Peter's Cathedral for this celebration of Mass on the 28th Sunday of the church year, and for this very special day in which we join with the church throughout the province of Pennsylvania to consecrate this diocese to the protection and the care of our Blessed Mother Mary on this, the 100th anniversary of her apparitions in Fatima. In another gospel passage, this one taken from St. John, we're given a glimpse into the life of Mary and the very foundations for her greatness in the church. The passage takes place during an event that you know well from the scriptures, the wedding feast of Cana, which finds Mary concerned about a seemingly insignificant issue. The wine for the feast, the wine for the wedding party had run out. And so, like any good mother, she tells her son, "What are you going to do about it? We need something done here." And she's met with a pretty sharp response in the scriptures. "Woman, how does your concern affect me?" I could never get away with that with my mother, that's for sure. Mary's response, however, is not based on one shred of information in the story. Sets her apart from among all the other disciples. In response to what seems like a harsh reaction from her son, you know what she says. Now do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you. In those words, Mary becomes the first disciple of Jesus to show the quality of true belief. She trusts unconditionally in the word of her Son, even in the face of what to many of us seems like rejection and rebuke. She trusts, and underline trust, unconditionally. Hold that notion in your heart as we reflect upon the woman whom we honor and to whom we entrust this diocese today. Brothers and sisters, please join me together in the prayer of consecration to Our Lady of Fatima. Hail, Mother of the Lord, Virgin Mary, Queen of the Rosary of Fatima, blessed among all women, you are the image of the Church dressed in the Paschal light. You are the honor of our people. You are the triumph over the mark of evil. Prophecy of the merciful love of the Father, teacher of the Annunciation of the good news of the Son, sign of the burning fire of the Holy Spirit. Teach us in this valley of joys and sorrows the eternal truths that the Father reveals to the little ones. Show us the strength of your mantle of protection. In your Immaculate Heart, be the refuge of sinners and the way that leads to God. In unity with our brothers and sisters, in faith, hope, and love, we surrender ourselves to you. In unity with all our brothers and sisters through you, we consecrate ourselves to God, O Virgin of the Rosary of Fatima. And thus, surrounded by the light that comes from your hands, we give glory to the Lord forever and ever. Amen. For all that we celebrate today, we have a very special individual gathered with us for worship this afternoon. She was born 2 days after the great miracle of the sun in Fatima 100 years ago. Marie Porter up in the front row, happy birthday and God's blessings upon you always. If you saw how good she looks, you'd realize the 100 years must have been pretty good to her, and we wish her many more. On this day in which we as the Church of Scranton gather to celebrate the rite of candidacy for admission to the permanent diaconate for 8 men from this local church, we give thanks for their willingness to walk with the Lord and their openness to the Lord's call. We give thanks for the blessing and gift of their family and friends who have journeyed with them and have supported them in their openness to the Lord. And as we join together this day, we give thanks for the power of God at work, continually building up and sustaining the Church of God here in our midst. Reflect often on the nature of your call. A deacon's service to the people of God is threefold: service to the Word of God, service at the altar of the Lord, and in a particular and unique and generous way, service to the poor. While all 3 types of ministry and service are essential to the life of the church, know, however, that the ministry for which you are being formed must include some form of direct service to the poor and those who are most in need. That's what sets you apart and uniquely characterizes your ministry. My brothers, as you consider what you're asked to do this day in response to the Lord's call, the entire church is grateful to you, but also grateful to your families and particularly to your wives. In so many respects, my sisters, you have and will continue to assume an integral role in your husband's spiritual journey. Your willingness to encourage them to open their hearts to the call of the Lord, your selfless love and support amid their struggles to discern the place of the Lord in their plan for life, and your fidelity in prayer is not only a blessing to your family and particularly to your husbands, but to the Church of Scranton, and especially to those who will be touched by your husband's ministry as they move forward. In response to the Lord's call, do you resolve to complete your preparation so that in due time, through holy orders, you will be prepared to assume ministry within the church?
I do.
Do you resolve to prepare yourselves in mind and spirit to give faithful service to Christ the Lord and his body, the church?
I do.
The church accepts your resolve with joy this day. May God, who has begun the good work in you, bring it to fulfillment. Be attentive, Lord, to our prayers for your sons who wish to dedicate themselves to your service and the service of your people in the sacred ministry. In your love, graciously bless them, that they may persevere in their vocation, and that in holding fast with undivided charity to Christ the priest, they may be worthy to take up the apostolic mission through Christ our Lord. Amen.
That's all the time we have for now. On behalf of the staff at Catholic Television, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next month at this time for our next edition of Our Faith, Our Diocese. For now, I'm Dan Gallagher, wishing you all a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving.